Chapter 4292. Other than the faint pain in his stomach, Qin Mo felt that the night was wonderful. He had fulfilled his dream from more than 10 years ago. More than 10 years later, Huan was still a little girl, just like before. At midnight, the ancient city not far away let off fireworks to celebrate. He held her in his arms on the edge of the city wall and lowered his head to kiss her. Huan didn't refuse. At this moment, he thought that she liked him and even fell in love with him. Because the body couldn't lie. They could both feel each other's body temperature. On such a cold night, no one was willing to break the silence. This moment was simply too wonderful. He felt like he was dreaming. Even in his dreams, he would dream that Huan would suddenly fall in love with him one day. And that dream was a nightmare to him for the first year of their marriage. After kissing for a long time, when they returned to the car, Qin Mo asked Huan to drive. She also thought that he was too tired, so she drove and let him sit in the back seat. When they arrived at the hotel, she stopped the car and looked sideways. Qin Mo was lying on his side in the back seat, seemingly asleep. Huan whispered to him, "Qin Mo, we're at the hotel." He didn't respond. She smiled, opened the car door, and then opened the back door. Just as she was about to speak to him, she found that his face was abnormally pale and his forehead was covered with fine sweat. When she touched it, she felt cold. "Qin Mo." Huan called his name loudly and patted his face. But he still didn't respond. Huan was a little anxious. She immediately took out her phone and called Qin Shun. As soon as Qin Shun picked up, she said anxiously, "Chun Chun." Qin Mo suddenly felt cold all over. His face was pale and he was sweating. "We were fine outside, but he fell asleep in the car and became like this." Qin Shun had just fallen asleep, and now he was completely awake. He sat up and asked, "What else did you do outside?" "We ate barbecued meat," Huan said quickly. Qin Chen's voice softened. "Take him to the hospital immediately. Call me if anything happens. I'll come over directly if necessary." Huan agreed. She got back in the car and navigated to the nearest hospital. Half an hour later, in the examination room of a certain hospital in Sea City, the doctor on duty looked at the scan and said somewhat speechlessly, "The patient's stomach is not good to begin with. This time, it's probably because he ate too much, so it's an acute stomachache. It should be very painful, but he actually endured it for so long." Huan remembered that they had kissed for at least an hour at the city wall, and her face was a little hot. She even cursed Qin Mo in her heart. What the fuck? Why was he trying to act cool when his stomach was hurting? However, she also felt a little guilty. He didn't eat much at first, and she thought he was in a bad mood. She didn't know that his stomach had always been bad, and she still forced him to eat so much barbecued meat. She licked her lips and asked softly, "Can his stomach recover?" "Well, try not to order stimulating food. Nourishing the stomach won't be a big problem," the doctor said. Huan breathed a sigh of relief. The doctor coughed lightly. "The patient may have diarrhea. After all, his stomach can't absorb the food." Huan. She first called Qin Shun and told her not to come over. It wasn't a big problem. She also asked about Qin Mo's physical condition. Qin Shun wanted to say something, but stopped. After a while, she said, "He hasn't been very happy these years, especially after you go to America." Huan was stunned. After a long time, Qin Shun said again, "Prepare something good for his stomach, preferably Chinese food. Let him rest in Sea City for the next few days." "Huan, I'll leave Qin Mo to you. Don't worry about Huan. We'll take good care of her." Chapter 4293. Qin Mo was sent to the VIP ward. Fortunately, it was just acute gastritis, and he didn't need surgery. He only needed to stay in the hospital for 3 days and rest for a week. Huan sat beside him and reached out to touch his face. "Do you feel anything now?" Qin Mo had already woken up. He opened his eyes and looked at Huan. "What?" Huan pursed her lips and was too embarrassed to say it. She just glared at him. "You're so stupid. If you can't eat, then don't eat. Now you're lying in the hospital." Qin Mo was used to being domineering. Now that he was lying in the ward and wearing the blue and white striped hospital gown, he actually looked weak. He still lay there and looked at her quietly. There was a hint of weakness in his black eyes. "Are you angry?" Huan snorted. "Why would I be angry? I'm not the one suffering here. Then you feel sorry for her? He immediately asked. Huan looked as if her tail had been stepped on. That's even more so. Qin Imo stared at her. After a while, he reached out to touch her face. He couldn't reach it and wanted to move away. At first, Huan didn't want to talk to him. But when she saw him enduring the pain, her heart softened. However, her face was still stinky. It seemed like she was unwilling to move her face closer. Chinamo gently touched her face and chuckled. You're still denying it? Your eyes are red. You must have cried. Who cried? I didn't. She refused to admit it. Chinamo didn't say anything else. He just reached out and gently touched her eyelids. His voice was hoarse. Then what's wrong with your eyes? Is there sand in them? Yes, there's sand in them. Huan stared at him stubbornly. Chinamo just smiled gently. Huan's face was very hot. Just when she was about to say something to refute him, the nurse beside her couldn't help but laugh. Mr. Qin, when you were sent here for the examination, Mrs. Qin kept crying outside. Your wife loves you very much. Huan, damn it, I don't care about my face. But she couldn't say anything to the nurse. She could only look at the sky in silence. Although Qin Mo was weak, his gaze was clear and gentle at this moment. Moreover, he realized that there were a lot of people around, so he didn't say anything. He just held Huan's fingers silently, just like a young man, a little childish but absolutely sincere. Huan's little finger twitched, but she gave up on retracting it. He held it, and sometimes he would secretly tickle her. It was very childish. She was a little tired from sitting like that, so she leaned against the headboard. She was actually scared out of her wits, but she didn't tell him. Her eyes were still red. The nurse finished her work and left. Finally, it was quiet. Qin Mo was resting with his eyes closed. He suddenly asked, Why do they call you Mrs. Qin? Is it very important? Huan obviously didn't want to answer his question. Qin Mo closed his eyes and chuckled. It's very important to me. Did you fill in your medical card as husband and wife? Huan nodded. Still unsatisfied, he asked again, Why do you have to do that? Huan finally couldn't take it anymore. Qin Mo, you're old. We came here together. If I don't fill in your medical card as husband and wife, am I supposed to fill in our medical card as husband and wife? Qin Mo opened his eyes and looked at her. He was a little surprised and hurt. I'm not old. Do I look that wretched? Chapter 4294. Qin Mo was so angry that he turned around and ignored her. The good atmosphere was completely ruined by Huan. His heart was softened and touched. It was all given to a little naughty thing. No, it was fed to a puppy. Qin Mo was furious. He was sick, so he shouldn't act like a proud little princess who needed to be coaxed. Huan patted his back. Are you angry? He ignored her and pretended to sleep. Huan wasn't good at coaxing people. At first, she felt very guilty and worried. But now that he was fine and still had the strength to throw a tantrum, her worry and guilt were temporarily put aside. She wanted to catch up on her sleep. Although it was already 2 in the morning, she still had to sleep. Huan really felt that everyone should rest. In this aspect, she was a little straightforward. After all, she was a little girl and didn't know how to coax people. So, she really fell asleep and slept lightly on Qin Mo's back. Qin Mo waited for a long time, but didn't get an apology. He turned around and saw that Huan had actually fallen asleep. What should he do? He opened his eyes and gritted his teeth in anger. So, he decided to give her a Cold War. However, for a patient with gastrointestinal problems, it was very troublesome to have no one to take care of him. Especially after only half an hour, his abdomen started to hurt abnormally again. Qin Mo quietly endured it for a while. Finally, he couldn't help but push Huan. Huan woke up immediately. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Qin Mo was still angry. He gritted his teeth and said word by word, I want to go to the toilet. Huan was stunned for a moment. Then, she understood everything. She held the 4 bottle in one hand and supported him with the other. Cold sweat broke out on Qin Mo's forehead again. She felt a little sorry for him when she saw that. She whispered, You've been holding in for a while, haven't you? He didn't say anything and quickened his steps to the toilet. Huan helped him hang up the 4 bottle and left, leaving Qin Mo with dignity. She guessed that if she didn't leave, he would still hold it in. She leaned against the door and suddenly felt a kind of heartache. In fact, Qin Mo had never been a person who did stupid things. On the contrary, he was very decisive and ruthless. It was rare for him to do something like this. She lowered her eyes. She knew very well that he was just trying to make her happy. Huan was a little irritated and wanted to smoke for some reason. He wanted to find something to relieve his boredom. Perhaps it was the intense emotions that made her a little overwhelmed. She thought that it was her and Qin Mo's first time, so they were a little awkward. Huan leaned against the door and let out a long sigh. At that moment, she heard Qin Mo's voice. "I'm done." Huan was stunned for a moment before he pushed the door open and entered. Qin Mo had already stood up. He had pulled up his shirt, but one of his hands was not very smooth. Huan quietly helped him tidy up and looked at him. "Are you done?" A pained expression suddenly appeared on Qin Mo's face as he frowned slightly. Maybe it's not healed yet. Huan that night. No one slept well. Qin Mo was so tired that he almost collapsed. When the sun rose, he was done tossing and turning. Huan was also very tired. Looking at his sleeping face, she could clearly feel that he had lost a lot of weight overnight. He wasn't very muscular to begin with, and now he looked even thinner. She stretched out her fingers and gently stroked his face. "You can't sleep?" He suddenly opened his eyes and pulled her into his arms. "Let's sleep." Huan buried her face in his neck. After a while, she whispered his name. "Qin Mo." He nodded and reached out to stroke her little head. "What's wrong?" Huan wrinkled her nose. "I keep feeling that you have a weird smell on you." Chapter 4295. Qin Mo glared at her. Huan nestled in his arms. "It's just a smell. Do you want to take a shower?" Her man gritted his teeth. "Huan, you're letting a gastritis patient take a shower now." She was still stubborn. "But it stinks." "You can refine your words." He harumphed coldly before letting go of her. He did not want to talk to her anymore. She would despise him anyway. President Qin was also at Sundara. He was clearly sick because of her, yet she was despising him now. Hence, no matter how weak he was still angry. Moreover, his body was not feeling well. He tossed and turned, unable to sleep. His stomach was even more uncomfortable. Huan lay beside him. Probably sensing his discomfort, she asked softly, "Should I call the doctor over?" "No need. The doctor can't make my body smell good either," he said childishly. Then, Huan did not say anything more. President Qin was furious. This heartless little bastard. He closed his eyes and did not speak again. After a long time, he felt a small thing burrowing into his embrace. Two slender arms were still wrapped around his waist. She was like a fire doll since she was young, very hot. At this moment, her palm was placed on his stomach and gently rubbed it for him. Qin Mo did not know why, but his heart suddenly softened. He should not have forgiven this hateful little thing so easily. However, he still could not resist her. He had liked her for so long. Even if she took a small step, he was willing to take the remaining dozens or hundreds of steps. This time was no exception. Qin Mo reached out and grabbed her hand. He sighed softly. "Huan, I really don't know what to do with you." Huan did not say anything. She just rested her head on his shoulder. Just as Qin Mo was about to fall asleep, she said softly, "I'll treat you better in the future." He seemed to wake up all of a sudden and smiled faintly. By the time Qin Mo woke up, it was already noon. When he opened his eyes, he was surrounded by white. The pillow was empty. He let out a long breath and asked the nurse beside him, "Where's my wife?" The nurse was changing the drip. She smiled and said, "Director, he went to work. She told you to eat something." "Oh, she also ordered lunch for you." Qin Mo thought to himself, without a companion, he went to work and gave her a bad review. However, he also knew that she couldn't let go of her work. It was Huan's limit to do this. Besides, she didn't sleep much last night and had to work during the day. Thus, he sat up and dialed Huan's number. The other side quickly picked up, "You're awake?" Qin Mo nodded and asked her, "Have you had breakfast and lunch?" Huan answered honestly, "I had lunch." He was furious. "Don't you need to eat breakfast? What if your stomach is hungry?" Huan blurted out, "I don't think you have the right to say that about me. You're lying in the hospital yourself." He ground his teeth angrily again. Huan knew that he was angry, so she coaxed him, "Don't be angry. I'll come to accompany you after work." Qin and Mo felt a little warm in his heart. At the same time, he felt sorry for her. He said subconsciously, "Why don't you stay in the hotel? It's not a serious illness." "Really? Then I really won't come?" Huan smiled. Chapter 4296. Qin and Mo froze for a moment. She sighed faintly. "Look at you. You're still the CEO. You always say one thing, but mean another." Qin and Mo was usually a very carefree person, but in front of Huan, it was useless no matter how carefree he was. He was silent for a while before he said in a low voice, "Come over." Huan laughed. "Take care of yourself. I'll cook for you tonight." Was it okay for her to cook? Qin and Mo smiled and hung up. The nurse brought Huan's lunch over. It was a nourishing porridge made by the best shop in Sea City. The porridge smelled delicious as soon as the box was opened. Qin and Mo ate most of the porridge with one hand and asked the nurse to clean it up. He was a little bored, so he contacted his secretary about some work-related matters and slept in the afternoon. When he woke up, Huan was already there with a bag of fresh vegetables in her hand. Qin and Mo looked at her and sat up. "Do you really know how to cook?" "A little." Huan put the vegetables away, washed her face, and looked for information on her phone. With one look, Qin and Mo could tell that she had probably never done it before. His heart turned cold. Then he got off the bed, hugged her waist from behind, and bit the back of her neck. "I'm still sick. If you make me a dark cuisine, I'll get even sicker. I might even have to stay here for a month. By then, I'll be done with you." Huan tilted her head and looked at him. Then she smiled. "Yes, it's very possible." Qin and Mo sighed. "Let me do it." Hunan's body stiffened. Then she said gloomily as she swiped on her phone, "Qin and Mo, do you think I can't be a good wife?" Qin and Mo stood behind her and did not speak for a long time. At first, Huan did not react. Then she came back to her senses. Her face was a little hot. She said in a low voice, "I'll go cook." He pulled her back into his arms and hugged her tightly. Huan whispered, "Let go of me. A nurse will come in at any time." "Aren't we married?" Qin and Mo was a little absent-minded. Then he moved on to another topic. "I'll feel sorry for you if you've been busy all day." Huan let him hug her and asked in a low voice, "So you're going to cook?" "In your dreams." To her surprise, he bit her on the back of her ear. Then he picked up his phone and dialed a number. He booked a 5-star chef to come over and cook 3 dishes and a soup for them. Huan shook his head but didn't refute. Later, when he was dealing with work on his bed, Huan went to take a shower and came back to serve his master. The 5-star chef came to make dinner and then left. Huan was a little speechless as she prepared dinner. While preparing the food, she emphasized, "It's not that I can't cook." Qin and Mo dropped the notebook in his hand. "But I don't want you to be an old woman." As he spoke, he took her hand and kissed it. Huan was speechless. She looked at the notebook on the bed and suddenly asked him, "Why do you have a notebook here?" Qin and Mo shrugged and said nonchalantly, "The manager of the branch gave it to me." Huan also sat down. Then she said thoughtfully, "Actually, in this case, you can ask someone to take care of you." Qin and Mo stared at her for a few seconds. His gaze made Huan want to look away. After a while, she wanted to say something, but Qin and Mo interrupted her. "I'll be discharged tomorrow afternoon. I won't disturb you for too long." Chapter 4297. Huan bit her lip. "You know that's not what I meant." As she said that, she mashed the food on her plate and said softly, "Do you have to pretend to be a victim to make me feel guilty?" Qin and Mo smiled and didn't say anything else. Huan pursed her lips. She knew that this was his usual trick, so she didn't say anything else and just ate quietly. The food made by a 5-star chef was indeed different. Even if it was a home-cooked meal, it could be made into a masterpiece. However, both of them were a little upset. In fact, this was normal. Young couples in love were often like this. Although they had long passed the stage of being young, it was the first time for everyone to fall in love. After dinner, Huan was the one who cleaned up the dishes. After that, he still worked, and so did she. One sat on the bed, and the other sat on the small sofa. It was like a boundary at 10 o'clock at night. Huan threw the script down and exhaled. Okay, time to sleep. Qin and Mo immediately put away his notebook and lay straight. Huan looked at him and found it funny. Aren't you going to the bathroom? Qin and Mo opened his eyes and said coldly, I'm not a child. He then closed his eyes again. Huan was a little speechless. She didn't force him and climbed into bed. She was really a little tired and sleepy. She fell asleep very quickly and carefully next to him. Qin and Mo was a little angry at first, but when he saw that she still had a faint trace of exhaustion on her face, the anger in his heart suddenly disappeared. What was left was a little self-blame. He said that he would take care of her, but now he was letting her take care of him. Huan was actually just a little girl. She had been pampered since she was young. It was really not easy for her to be willing to cook for him while working. He really shouldn't do this to her. Qin and Mo felt a little guilty. He reached out and touched her little face gently. He said with a little grievance, I took a shower today, but you didn't smell it. Later, he trapped her small body in his arms and gently hugged her. He always felt that it was not enough. Huan didn't wake up the whole night, and Qin and Mo felt guilty and wronged the whole night. He didn't fall asleep until 4 o'clock in the morning. When she woke up, Huan was no longer there, but she left him a note saying that she had eaten breakfast and bought it for him. When he woke up, she asked the nurse to heat it up for him. He smiled. He had already recovered a long time ago. There was no need for a nurse. Qin and Mo raised his hand and looked at his watch. It was already 10 o'clock. No wonder he looked so refreshed. In fact, this was really nothing to him. In the past, when the company was busy, he still had to get up and go to work when his fever reached 40 degrees Celsius. It was just that Huan wasn't by his side at that time. Now, lying down, he felt a little happy. The corners of Qin Mo's mouth curled up slightly. He laughed at himself for being silly, and then felt that Huan was silly. He ate breakfast and took in 4 drip for the whole day. In the afternoon, he was completely fine and strongly requested to be discharged. He didn't tell Huan when he left the hospital and went straight to her hotel room. At 6 o'clock in the afternoon, Huan came to the hospital. The ward was empty. She was stunned and asked the nurse beside her, Where's Mr. Qin? The nurse looked at her strangely. Mr. Qin was discharged. Mrs. Qin, don't you know? Huan forced a smile. He probably wanted to give me a surprise. Chapter 4298. When Huan walked out, she looked at the flowers in her hand. It was a bouquet of white roses. She also bought a crystal vase because Qin and Mo liked it. She thought that putting it at the patient's bedside would make him feel better. But he was gone now, and she didn't even know where he went. Huan stood at the door for a while, then walked slowly and threw the roses in her hand into the trash can. She looked at it quietly for a while, feeling a little disappointed. How should she put it? She felt like a failure. She was an actress, a famous director, famous both in the mainland and abroad, but she wasn't a good wife or a good mother to Qin and Mo. He didn't think that she could cook, so he would rather find a 5-star chef to make 3 simple dishes and 1 soup. She just didn't approve of his thoughtfulness at that moment. She was a little tired, but when she got into the car, Huan still called Qin and Mo, asking him where he was and if he had returned to B City. Qin and Mo didn't answer her directly. He just told her that he was discharged from the hospital and then asked where she was. Huan looked at the long hospital corridor and said in a low voice, I'm in the hospital. I'm going back to the hotel in a while. Then, she added, Take good care of yourself. She hung up. She didn't know why she was depressed, but she just felt a little uncomfortable. If liking someone was so uncomfortable, she wouldn't have liked him if she had known. She didn't go back to the hotel immediately, but drove around C City. It was almost 9 o'clock when she got back. When Huan got out of the car, she was a little tired. She and Qin and Mo were actually the same kind of people. They were born with superiority and didn't need to worry about the future. They only needed to work hard and move forward. They could fail because they were destined to succeed because they were born. They were much luckier than most people. But feelings were different. Feelings didn't matter where they were born. They would have to suffer a lot, but this kind of birth would have a lot more troubles. It was better to be ordinary. Huan admitted that she was a coward. She didn't want to spend much effort on feelings. She was born a little lazy, so once Qin and Mo left, she was a little confused and self-denying. Perhaps they hadn't learned how to love others. Hee-Hwan swiped the card to open the door of the suite and was surprised to find that the lights were on. The man she thought was in City was sitting on the sofa with a laptop by his side. He was wearing a bathrobe and was reading documents. Hee-Hwan felt as though something was stuck in his throat. After a while, he found his voice and said in a hoarse voice, "Chinamo," he looked up. "You're back." Hee-Hwan nodded and stood at the door. "Why didn't you return to City?" Chin-Mo closed the notebook. "You don't want me to come back?" "No." Hee-Hwan looked down. "Aren't you going to be discharged tomorrow?" "I don't want you to rush back and forth. My heart will ache." He still looked at her calmly, as if he was saying something very normal. Hee-Hwan stared at him for a long time before she said bitterly, "You could have told me. I went to the hospital one more time today." This time, he got up and walked straight toward her. He stretched out a finger and gently stroked her face. His voice was extremely hoarse. "Are you especially disappointed that I didn't report to you?" Chapter 4299. His voice was very hoarse. "Are you very disappointed that I didn't tell you?" Hee-Hwan slapped his hand away and turned her head to the side. "Don't touch me." But her eyes were still secretly red. She didn't like herself like this. She was too fragile and easily controlled by Chin-Mo. He could make her happy, angry, and satisfied as he wanted. She didn't like him like this either. He was scheming against her. Chin-Mo stared at her red eyes and reached out to touch them carefully. His voice was unbelievably gentle. "Hee-Hwan, tell me where you have been for the past few hours." She didn't want him to touch her and wanted to step back, but he quickly held her waist. Hee-Hwan bit her lips and looked down with a tinge of unwillingness. "I went to the hospital. Ma'am, I know. I also bought flowers." This time, he didn't answer. Instead, he looked at her deeply, and his expression was a little moved. He knew Hee-Hwan. She was a very passive person in love and wouldn't easily express herself. Buying flowers was something that men should do, but she actually did it. He touched her eyelids again, and his voice was hoarse with a touch of a doting smile. "Is it because you want to please me and make me happy?" Hee-Hwan snorted. "I threw it away. I threw it into the trash can. That's not the point. The point is that you bought it." He smiled slightly and seemed to be coaxing her. His voice was particularly hoarse. "What did you buy?" "White roses," she said angrily. Chin-Mo pinched her face. "You know me very well. I really like white roses." At this moment, Chin-Mo turned into the little princess of Mo. Hee-Hwan was speechless. She glared at him. "Don't think that I will forgive you just like this." Then she got rid of him and instinctively went to the dining room to find something to eat. Then she saw 3 dishes and a soup. It didn't look like it was made by a 5-star chef, nor did it look like takeout. It was refreshing and very homely. "Doesn't it look good? I made it." He smiled. Hee-Hwan knew that he could cook, but she didn't expect that he would do it himself here. She sat down quietly and looked at him before eating. "I still don't forgive you." Chin-Mo followed her and gently pressed his hand on the back of the chair behind her. He leaned close to her and said with a smile, "Then tell me, what did I do to make you particularly unhappy?" His words sounded like a trap. Hee-Hwan didn't fall for it. She ate quietly. However, Chin-Mo would not let her go. He chuckled and said, "Leaving without saying goodbye? Won't you have a chance to perform?" He paused for a moment, then continued in a deep voice, "You feel defeated, don't you?" Chin-Mo, Hee-Hwan finally couldn't take it anymore. She stared at him. "Aren't you hungry? You might not have fully recovered from your stomach trouble." He smiled faintly. "All right, we'll discuss this later." Hee-Hwan didn't want to talk about it. After dinner, she took a shower and lay in bed, scrolling through Weibo. Who was Chin-Mo? How could he allow her to do this? He stood at the end of the bed and smiled calmly. "Mrs. Chin, are you hinting at me? Don't call me that. Call me Hee-Hwan, or Miss He, or even Director He." Hee-Hwan didn't even look up. She was really angry with him. Chapter 4300. Hee-Hwan ignored him and continued to browse through the trending topic. Chin-Mo leaned over shamelessly. "Director He, don't you need anything?" Hee-Hwan's face froze. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. She slowly moved her eyes away from the phone screen and looked at Chin-Mo's handsome face. His face was indeed very good-looking, even better than the trending topic. However, she just wasn't interested in him tonight. She just gave him the cold shoulder, even if he was sick and had to cook for her. He was just like that. He didn't care about her feelings at all. She was very tired from work, and her mood was up and down because of him. It was normal for her to give him a cold shoulder. Just the thought of the flowers in the trash was enough to make her unhappy. Huan gritted her teeth and said, "No need. But I need it," he said even more shamelessly. "Let's cooperate, just like before." This time, Huan put down the phone completely and stared at his face. "Chinamo, the vase I bought today was very expensive. It's more than 10,000 yuan. You threw it away?" He crawled over to her and leaned against the headboard. He didn't hug her, but only gently pinched her face. What a wastrel. Huan felt that she was about to be defeated by him. She emphasized, "That's not the point." She wanted to say that it was her kind intention, but he left without saying goodbye. Although he was in the hotel, he didn't tell her that he was sick, not to mention that he was not surprised. There was no joy. However, she didn't want to tell Chin and Mo about her feelings, so she just turned her head away and didn't want to talk to him. Chin and Mo stared at her. He wasn't such a dull man. He knew how she was feeling. Perhaps he was deliberately trying to make her anxious and anxious. He had always been the one who took the initiative in their relationship, and Huan rarely tasted the feeling of being ignored. Now, she was obviously unhappy and angry. His voice was particularly hoarse. "Seeing you sad, I should feel sad and heartache, but I'm very happy, Huan." Huan didn't want to look at him, but now she couldn't help but raise her head. She wanted to say to his mother. She glared at him, and a thin layer of mist appeared in her eyes. She had never been a pretentious woman, but now she was very uncomfortable. She couldn't describe it, but she didn't know what it was exactly. Huan's eyes were sore after staring for a while, but Chin Mo was still smiling faintly. She was furious. Damn it. She turned her back and completely ignored him. She even gave him a kick in retaliation. "Go away." Chin Mo lowered his head and gazed at her. With a slight turn of his body, he pulled her into his arms. He put his thin lips on her ear. "Are you really angry?" "Go away," Huan said angrily. Chin Mo laughed. "You really want me to leave?" If they were really willing, then who would stay outside and never come back? If they were really willing, then they wouldn't cry, right? Huan said stubbornly. "Who cried?" "I didn't." Chin Mo let out a long, "oh," and deliberately said, "That's a puppy crying." Huan couldn't bear it anymore. She turned around and bit him, wanting to bite him to death. She buried her face in his neck and bit his Adam's apple. She couldn't use her strength, and the bite became a little warm. Chin Mo's voice became especially hoarse and sexy. "You said you're not a puppy. Who's the one biting me now?" Chapter 43:01. Huan's teeth were already sore from clenching them so hard that his flesh hardened. But now that he called her a puppy, she wouldn't relent and wouldn't let go. Seeing her like this, Chin Mo found it both funny and adorable. He reached out and gently stroked her hair. His voice was especially hoarse as he said, "You really think you're a puppy, huh? I can't bear to." Then he added, "It really looks like a short-haired dog." Huan was speechless. She wasn't his match in terms of eloquence, and she was even angrier now. She didn't have the ability to fight to a draw with him. Besides, she was also afraid that he would do something reckless. She could already feel something stirring in his arms. How stupid would she be to provoke him again? So after she moved her face away, it landed on his shoulder. He was wearing a nice shirt, and it was very comfortable to rub against her face. Yeah, it made her feel sleepy. Huan really closed her eyes. One of her hands was around his neck, and the other was around his waist. Chin Mo lowered his head and said a few words to her. She didn't respond until Chin Mo said softly, "Grow your hair long." "No." She rejected him mercilessly. "I'll help you wash and blow dry it." He coaxed her again. Huan raised her head in his arms. Her black eyes opened into a cute slit. "I'm still angry at you." "You won't be angry when your hair is long." Chin Mo chuckled. Huan still said no, and she fell asleep again. Later, Chin Mo reached out and patted her shoulder gently. He didn't disturb her anymore and just pulled the blanket over her. She must be tired. After a busy day, she realized that he was gone. Her heart was tired too. She gently moved her face closer and whispered, I lied. Actually, my heart aches. Ihuan was in a deep sleep. When she woke up, she realized that there was a different fresh fragrance in the air. She sat up immediately and realized that the bed was covered with white roses. The thorns on the long stems had been carefully removed. The roses on the bed were luxurious. He blinked and grabbed his watch. It was already 10 o'clock. After the shock, she remembered that she had a day of rest today, so she scratched her short hair and lay down again. After lying down, he called out softly, "Qin Mo." She knew that he must still be there. After all, CEO Qin had done such a romantic act. He would definitely collect some commission. Sure enough, he answered after she called him. After a while, Qin Mo came out of the washroom, feeling refreshed. He leaned against the door of the washroom. His lazy posture was very attractive. Ihuan glanced at him and then closed her eyes again. "What do you mean by doing this so early in the morning? How much longer until you finish filming?" Qin Mo asked her. Ihuan picked up a rose and sniffed it. "Why do you ask?" "Oh, I forgot to tell you that I may work in C City. Yes, in this suite. If you don't think it's convenient, we can find another place to live. After all, the higher-ups in B City will appear in our room from time to time for meetings. Ihuan, you don't have a good habit of throwing your clothes everywhere. I think it's inconvenient, right?" Ihuan sensed a conspiracy and frowned. It seems that President Qin has already found a place to live. Qin Mo was silent for a while. "Director He, your words are so refreshing." Chapter 43:02. Ihuan sat up on the bed, tilting her head and looking at him. "Screenwriter Rong has been with the crew recently, so I'm influenced by what I see and hear." Qin Mo's posture was still very lazy, but the expression on his face didn't show it. He gritted his teeth, walking towards Ihuan step by step. He leaned in close to her and said in a low and deep voice, "Ihuan, you really know how to piss me off." Then he lowered his head and kissed her. It seemed like he was letting himself go, but it also seemed like he was coaxing her. Anyway, this kiss caused a lot of anger, but he controlled it. After a long time, he said in a low voice, "Get up, go wash your face and brush your teeth. I'll take you to our room later." Ihuan's lips were a little swollen from the kiss, and her eyes were a little dazed. When she came back to her senses, she looked up at him. "President Qin, is this also considered being influenced by what you see and hear?" He muttered angrily, "Probably." Then he said indignantly, "You know what I care about the most, but you have to piss me off." He straightened his body, but Ihuan hugged him. Hugging him, Ihuan paused for a moment before asking in his ear, "Isn't the person you care about the most? When did it become Rong Yu? Do you like him?" Qin Mo lowered his eyes and looked at the little girl in his arms. Her gaze was a little mischievous and bold, looking at him fearlessly. Qin Mo chuckled and reached out to pinch her cheek. "If I really like him, what will you do?" With that said, he slapped her but hard. "Director He, where did you get influenced by what you see and hear?" "One gets influenced by one's company," Ihuan spat out. Qin Mo's gaze suddenly turned dangerous. He stared at her for a while before smiling. "I really want to see if your little heart has turned black." Ihuan ignored his crazy words and jumped off the bed to go to the bathroom. Then she turned back. "What about Ihuan? Is she coming over?" Qin Mo's answer was, "She has to go to school and study hard. The future of the Qin family depends on her." Ihuan frowned and said while squeezing the toothpaste, "I don't want her to take over King Entertainment. It was too hard for a girl. Moreover, Ihuan looked like the same type as Tang Sher. She didn't want to go to an elite education at a young age. In fact, she still didn't understand Qin Mo. If she knew, she wouldn't be so worried. Qin Mo and Yi Muyun had been educated since a long time ago. Ihuan had grown up, but she only knew how to act cute every day. It was obvious that she was raised from a rich family. Perhaps he saw Ihuan's shadow in Ihuan. How could Qin Mo bear to let her suffer? After Ihuan said that, Qin Mo followed her into the bathroom. He hugged her waist from behind and said hoarsely, "So while I can still move, let's have a son." She slapped his unruly hand away. Futile thinking. Qin Mo wasn't angry. He clung onto her again. "You can't bear to have a daughter, and you say I'm futile when we have a son. Then what should we have? Doesn't Qin have a son?" Ihuan was also very sarcastic. She brushed her teeth and said that. Qin and Mo smiled faintly. He had always known that Huan didn't have much ambition for money. She only liked to do what she liked, so she didn't think that King Entertainment's 200 billion market value was a big deal. It wasn't that he couldn't bear to, but Qinshin's son's surname was Lan. The Lan family's Grand Hyatt Hotel wasn't small either. Inheriting it would be tiring enough. With King Entertainment, Lan Yu's child might not even have time for sex after he grew up and got married. Chapter 43:03. Chiemo thought for a moment, then leaned over and bit the back of her soft neck. You're so cruel. Lan Yu, that child, has a heavy burden on his own. Huan endured him as she brushed her teeth. She couldn't help but move, wanting to push him away. However, he was too shameless. He still held her, looking intoxicated. Qin and Mo, didn't you say that dogs are the ones that bite people? Huan endured and said. Qin and Mo chuckled. Then I'm a big wolf dog. I only bite you. As he spoke, he exhaled solemnly and then bit Huan's neck forcefully. Huan couldn't stand him anymore. Qin and Mo, you're so shameless. Qin and Mo laughed. He laughed very happily. Shameless. Didn't you cry from worry? Huan fell silent and didn't say anything for a long time. Then she brushed her teeth fiercely. Qin and Mo chuckled. He knew that there were some things Huan didn't want to admit. He waited for Huan to finish brushing her teeth. He didn't eat breakfast and took her to the car downstairs. The car was a Bentley Mulsanne, which was the model that Qin and Mo often drove. He had bought a few of them and parked them in different places. Sometimes, Huan felt that Qin and Mo had obsessive-compulsive disorder. Qin and Mo handed her a thermos. It's healthy. Drink a little first. We'll have breakfast at the apartment later. Huan glared at him. He smiled. She couldn't help asking, where are we going now? Qin Mo's fingers were on the steering wheel. He thought for a moment and said, it's not far, just a few minutes' drive. I have to stay with the crew. She frowned. Qin and Mo, you're putting me in a difficult position. That means you care. Otherwise, you would have refused. He smiled. Huan looked at him and didn't say anything. Her denial was a tacit agreement. Qin Mo's lips curled up, and he didn't say anything else. After driving for 10 minutes, he stopped the car in front of a commercial building and turned off the engine. Huan looked at him. He smiled. I bought the top floor 24 hours ago. I'll be staying there for 2 months. It was only when Huan went up with him that she realized how unrealistic he was. It was an apartment of about 500 square meters, which was ridiculously large. The transparent floor-to-ceiling windows allowed one to have a panoramic view of the entire sea city. There was also a gym, a small conference room, and a study. Of course, there was also a private space. Their master bedroom, changing room, and living room took up more than 200 square meters. The whole decoration was mainly European. It was not very luxurious, but it was quite tasteful. But when the door to the master bedroom was pulled open, Huan didn't feel it anymore. The pure white Italian handmade wool carpet was covered with black roses. The visual impact of black and white was very distinct. In the middle of the bedroom, there was a large bed that was about 3 meters wide. Intuition told him that he could unlock various skills and postures. Huan took off her indoor slippers and stepped on the soft carpet with her bare feet. After a while, she turned to look at Qin and Mo. Is this what you mean by making do? He leaned against the door with an indulgent smile on his face. As long as you like it. As he said that, his gaze fell on her little feet. His eyes burned, and then his voice became hoarse. There's a gift on the bed. Aren't you going to take a look? Huan was surprised. She bit her lip and looked at it. It was a square box. Chapter 43:04. Huan's fingers stroked it gently. I heard that the little black dress is for revenge. He nodded. You can wear it and torture me to your heart's content. I thought you would use the word ruling. Huan smiled and turned to look at him. Qin and Mo smiled slightly. As long as you like it. Huan's fingers were still stroking the box. After a while, she said in a low voice, Are you here for work or for vacation? Qin and Mo walked over and reached out to hug her waist. She was very thin, so he easily hugged her. His voice was still low and husky. I want to accompany you. Probably because these words were very pleasing to her ears, Huan didn't say anything else. Later, Qin and Mo helped her put on the dress. She looked very beautiful in it. He hugged her and danced for a while. Later, he pressed her against the soft bed and lingered for a long time. When everything was over, it was almost 12 o'clock. Huan lay in Qin Mo's arms and gently stroked his chest with one hand. "You're too indulgent. You just recovered from your illness." He chuckled and exhaled contentedly. "We probably have to have lunch together." Huan moved. "I want to take a shower." Qin Mo held her with one arm and got up slightly. Then, he pressed a button on the bedside. Almost immediately, a very professional and calm voice rang out. "President Qin, prepare lunch," Qin Mo said simply and then put down the button. Huan frowned. "What kind of high-level butler service is this?" Qin Mo smiled and then said faintly, "I forgot to tell you, this building is King Entertainment's office in Sea City." Huan stared at him for a long time before asking, "The entire building?" He grunted. Then, Huan was about to explode. Why didn't he say so earlier? And now they were having sex in King Entertainment's office. Huan raised her head and then kicked Qin Mo and exhaled. "You're so hateful." Qin Mo chuckled and watched her walk to the bathroom with only a small towel wrapped around her body. His voice was low and deep, very pleasing to the ear. After a while, he got up and took a shower with her. At the same time, he pressed Huan against the wall and kissed her for a long time. It was not until her legs went weak and her eyes were mesmerized that he finally let her go. By the time Huan came back to her senses, Qin Mo had already walked out because someone had rung the doorbell. The service staff, who looked like a senior butler, pushed the dining cart over. They did not dare to look at President Qin, who was only wearing a bathrobe. President Qin's hair was wet, and there were obvious hickeys on his neck, as well as some scratches and bites. It was so intense in broad daylight. Qin Mo closed the door and pushed the cart in. He set up the dining room and placed a crystal vase on the dining table. There were 2 roses in it, one white and one black. Huan came out and sat down. After quietly looking at the vase for a while, she raised her eyebrows and looked at him. "It's for you." Qin Mo smiled. "It's the work of some master from the 18th century. I think it's more than $1 million US. Tacky," Huan said as she sized up the vase. "How could something worth about 10 million be bad? It was just too wasteful." She then said, "Looks like Chinchin's squandering is traceable." Qin Mo smiled. "I hope you squander more so that you can rely on me more." Chapter 43:05. Qin Mo caressed her hair gently and smiled gently. "Girls don't have to work so hard." Huan frowned and started cutting the lamb chops. After a few mouthfuls, she suddenly asked, "Qin Mo, is the woman in your heart someone like Qin Mu or Cher?" Actually, Tang Cher was a few years older than her. However, Huan felt that a woman who was pampered shouldn't be a girl and always looked like a little girl. Was that what Qin Mo liked? As she cut the lamb chops, she thought that perhaps the 2 brothers had the same taste. Qin Mo looked at her and suddenly smiled. "It's okay to have interests and hobbies, but I don't think it's for money. It's just for happiness. It's better for men to earn money." His explanation actually worked, but Huan still said fiercely, "You're a male chauvinist." Actually, Qin Mo wasn't just bossy in this aspect. He was also very controlling in bed. Huan was often satisfied, but he wasn't satisfied yet. Or even when he was clearly satisfied, he still wanted her to cry and beg him to let go. Huan blushed at the thought of this. She didn't say anything for a long time and just ate quietly. Qin Mo glanced at her. "What are you thinking about?" He placed the lamb chops on her plate. Huan shook her head. "Nothing." As a mature and experienced man, he could roughly guess what was going through her mind. He chuckled and leaned over. Still not satisfied? Huan looked up and saw his handsome face. Her mind went blank and she blurted out, "Yeah." What she meant was, how could she be satisfied if she ate? However, Qin Mo clearly didn't mean that. He smiled and became even happier. He said softly, "I'll feed you some later." Huan finally snapped back to her senses. She bit her lip and glared at him. However, this kind of gaze was only fierce and didn't have much lethality. Qin Mo pinched her face. "Eat." Huan ignored him and lowered her head to eat quietly. Just then, Qin Mo's phone rang. Qin Mo glanced at it and pressed it down without batting an eyelid. Hwan didn't care for the first time. Then, the phone rang again. Qin Mo pressed the button again and saw Hwan looking at him. He smiled faintly. It's Vice President Qian. Hwan nodded and said, I thought it was AI Jia. Qin Mo looked at her and handed the phone to her quietly. I didn't answer her call. Hwan did not look at it. It was meaningless to look at it. She continued to eat, but her mood was obviously bad. She had no intention of talking to Qin Mo. He put his hand on the back of hers and said, I don't like her, but you can't ignore her, right? Hwan lowered her gaze. I meant what I said to you. Qin Mo, I'm being selfish. I'm marrying you, not everyone in the Qin family. Qin Lu saved you, so I can only thank him. As for AI Jia, I don't think Qin Lu would want her to pester his brother. Qin Mo smiled bitterly. I know. That's why I didn't answer her call. Hwan continued. Actually, you shouldn't have let her return to B City at all. Qin Mo, I think she took the initiative to get in touch with you, and you felt that you had an obligation to heal her, right? I know that you've been visiting her in America all these years, and that's why I can't really be with you. Chapter 43:06. She let out a long sigh. It's never Rongyu who's between us, but AI Jia. Hwan probably didn't want to talk to him anymore. She got up and walked to the French window, looking at City C. It was a second-tier city. It wasn't as prosperous as City B, but it had its own special charm. Qin Mo walked behind her and hugged her. He didn't say anything. He just hugged her and absorbed her warmth. Hwan looked down. Qin Mo, you can't be so selfish. Is that what you think of me? His voice was hoarse. Hwan, I've liked you for so many years. I've waited for you for so long. I can't bear to see you come back. I've arranged for you to stay here, and I've given you a romantic surprise. Is all this selfish? Isn't there anything else? Hwan pushed his hand away and said in a low voice, Don't talk to me about this. She knew it in her heart. She couldn't deny it. She wanted to leave, but Qin Mo reached out and pulled her back. Then, he began to kiss her neck. Hwan looked down. I'm a little tired. Are you tired, or are you not in the mood? Qin Mo took a small bite, his voice hoarse. Hwan didn't answer his question. I want to read the script. There's an important scene tomorrow. Qin Mo's fingers pressed on her shoulder, and after a while, he smiled slightly. Okay, he said, and took her to the living room attached to the master bedroom. Your things are here, and your clothes are in the changing room. I'll go to the study. Hwan leaned on the sofa and read the script. She talked with Kang Xiao and Rongyu about some details. After that, Rongyu suddenly said, I'm going back to City B tomorrow. My flight is in the morning. Hwan was stunned. She was about to say something when she saw Qin Mo standing by the door with a stack of documents in his hand. Her heart skipped a beat. She coughed and said, Oh, have a safe trip. Rongyu nodded and hung up the phone gently. Hwan felt a little uncomfortable. There was an indescribable feeling in her heart. Before she married Qin Mo, she had liked Rongyu for many years. Rongyu had always occupied a place in her heart, but she wouldn't let this place become bigger because she had promised Qin Mo. Hwan was the kind of person who knew what was right and what was wrong. Rongyu had never proposed anything to her, so they were at most old friends. After hanging up the phone, Hwan felt a little disappointed. Rongyu had spent almost all of her youth. Qin Mo carefully looked at her eyes and smiled faintly. Look at you. You look like you're about to cry. What happened? He clearly knew that it was Rongyu's call, but he still said that. Was he doing it on purpose? Hwan glared at him. I didn't. Qin Mo crossed his arms in front of him and smiled. Let me guess. Is it because Rongyu is leaving the crew and can't bear part with him? Hwan glared at him. Don't you dare. You guessed it. He walked over, bent down, looked at her carefully, and said very gently, Do you want me to comfort you? She glared at him and didn't say anything for a long time. Just when they were in a deadlock, Hwan's phone rang again. She looked at it and saw that it was Kang Xiao. The pressure in Qin Mo's eyes was obviously less oppressive, but he still sat next to her. Hwan picked up the phone and wanted to lean to the other side, but Qin Mo quickly stretched out a hand and pulled her into his arms. Then, he gently bit behind her ear and said, Answer the phone. Chapter 43:07. Yuan glanced at him, but still picked up the phone. Kong Xiao said briefly that Rong Yu was leaving and the crew was going to hold a farewell party for him. He asked Yuan if she wanted to go. Yuan thought for a while. Okay, send me the time and location. I'll go. Kong Xiao whistled. Director He, you've got guts. He was sure that Qin and Mo would be there, but He Huan still dared to go. He Huan smiled and hung up the phone without saying anything. The moment she hung up, she was almost pulled into Qin Mo's arms, and her neck was bitten. She screamed and struggled to sit up. She touched her neck, and it seemed to be a little bloody. He Huan was speechless. Qin and Mo, what's wrong with you? He looked terrible, and his breathing was a little messy. He Huan looked away and covered her wound with a tissue. Rong Yu and I are not doing what you think. If you're not happy, you could go straight to B City. You can leave right away if you have a private jet. Qin and Mo was so angry that he laughed. He frowned. You want me to leave? He Huan's fingers paused for a moment. Actually, that wasn't what she was thinking. She was just reacting out of reflex when she recalled how Qin and Mo had treated her. He must have misunderstood now, but she didn't want to explain it to him. She wiped her wounds so hard that she almost scraped off a layer of skin. Qin and Mo was indeed a little angry. As a man, he naturally wouldn't want her to go. But it was obvious that He Huan was also angry. She was as stubborn as him. Qin and Mo sighed softly and reached out to hold her arm. He Huan. She didn't want to talk to him and continued to wipe her wound. Are you still angry? He looked at her. If you want to go, then go. I'll pick you up when it's over. He Huan was surprised and didn't speak for a long time. Qin and Mo reached out and rubbed her short hair. Are you silly? Aren't you going to send me off? He Huan glanced at him and didn't say anything else. All right, go change your clothes. I'll send you off later. He patted her shoulder lazily, his voice a little hoarse. He Huan said that she would go by herself. Qin and Mo looked at her deeply. Therefore, He Huan did not insist. She went to the changing room, while Qin and Mo chose to sit on the sofa and smoke. Actually, as a man, he cared. But deep down, he knew that He Huan and Rong Yu were just a normal relationship. They had already filmed the film, and it was just a meal. He could be more generous. After all, he was the one who would spend the rest of his life with He Huan, not Rong Yu. While Qin and Mo was preparing himself mentally, He Huan went to the changing room. When she opened the door, she was stunned. In addition to her original clothes, there were a lot of new clothes hanging in the closet. Qin and Mo must have prepared them for her. The tags were not opened, and they were all good brands, at least 10 or 20,000 yuan. She was stunned for a moment and then looked in the direction of the living room. Looking at Qin Mo's back, she thought of what he said. He had done so much, but she didn't feel anything at all. He Huan let out a long breath, took out a black t-shirt and a denim skirt, and put it on. She was born thin, so she looked very young and didn't look like a director at all. When she went out, she stood behind Qin and Mo and said that she was done. Qin and Mo was probably stunned for a moment, then turned around and saw her. Chapter 43:08. He rarely saw her in dresses. Now that he looked at her for a few more seconds, he smiled. It looks good. He Huan lowered her head. I used to wear it like this too. He did not say anything. In fact, she realized that the clothes he bought for her were the ones she usually wore. There were not many dresses or lace dresses. He Huan said, my mom bought a lot of clothes with me when we went shopping. Qin and Mo smiled. I know. I thought you didn't like those clothes. How did you know? She bit her lip. Qin and Mo pulled her over and helped her tidy up her clothes before saying softly, because those clothes are probably uncomfortable for you. He paused for a moment. Just like women, no matter how beautiful and noble they are, I won't want them if I don't feel comfortable with them. He Huan glanced at him and did not say anything. What do you mean by comfortable? He Huan glanced at him, picked up her backpack, and walked in front. Qin and Mo took his coat and followed behind her. From where he was, he could see her slim back. Although she was not tall, her legs were slim, straight, and very fair. Qin and Mo and she had known each other for many years and had lived together as husband and wife many times. But now, just looking at her back made his heart heat up. It was not only because of Yuang, but also because he wanted to hold her in his arms. When He Huan opened the door, he took 2 steps forward and put his hand on her shoulder. She turned her head, and Qin and Mo lowered his head. Let's stop fighting, okay? Huan looked down and did not say anything. Qin Mo held her in his arms and entered the elevator. There was no one inside, and he pressed her into his arms and kissed her. After a long time, he stroked her neck. Does it still hurt? It hurts. She frowned. Don't touch it. It will hurt more if you touch it. Qin Mo smiled and let go of her. He coughed lightly and said, I thought you would block it for a while. Huan looked at him as if he was an idiot. It's so hot. How can I block it? She snorted again. When others ask, I'll say that I was bitten by a dog. The result of her words was that she was bitten again, completely and utterly. Huan was speechless. When they arrived downstairs, he drove her to the restaurant. It was already past 6 o'clock, and it was time for dinner. Huan asked if he wanted to go with her. Qin Mo sat with his fingers gently stroking the steering wheel. After a while, he said in a low voice, I won't go. I'll wait for you here. He added, no alcohol and no other programs. Bossy, Huan said as she opened the car door and got out. He held her back. Huan glanced at him. Qin Mo had a gentle look on his face as he repeated, You're not allowed to drink. I'll wait here. Huan's gaze fell on his face. After a long time, she opened the car door and got out. She walked very fast. Qin Mo watched her enter the car while he opened the car window and smoked slowly. He had indulged her once and only once. Like Huan, he was not a generous person, and today he must be crazy to allow her to have dinner with Lao Qing, and even to say goodbye and hug. The more he thought about it, the fiercer he smoked. When Huan entered the restaurant, she saw Kong Xiao. He was waiting for her there. Seeing Huan, Kong Xiao smiled. You're here. We're just waiting for you. As he said that, he led Huan in. It was a large private room with a long table instead of a round one. There seemed to be about 30 people sitting there, and Rongyu was sitting in the main seat. Chapter 4309. When Huan walked over, many people called out to her. In fact, in addition to being a director, Huan was also someone that many people present wanted to curry favor with because of her relationship with Qin Mo. One had to know that Qin Mo controlled half of the entertainment industry. He just needed to give him some resources, and he wouldn't have to worry about anything for the rest of his life. Huan also knew this, but she never cared about it. In her crew, she only cared about acting skills. If they acted well, they would be given a chance. Otherwise, no amount of flattery would work. She nodded at Rongyu and sat down casually. Kong Xiao and a supporting actress were sitting next to her. The supporting actress was from King Entertainment. She was a famous A-lister. She had been very attentive to Kong Xiao and wanted to promote her. However, Kong Xiao rejected her because she already had a wife. The supporting actress was called AI Meng Meng. She was very pretty and had a great figure. She was also very sociable. During the dinner, she was very caring and warm to Rongyu. However, Rongyu was always indifferent, so she became cold. Actually, AI Meng Meng had heard about Rongyu and Huan's past. Seeing that Rongyu was ignoring her, she knew what was going on. She didn't force him and continued to chat with the other men. Huan, Kong Xiao, and Rongyu naturally sat together and chatted. They mainly talked about work, especially Huan and Kong Xiao, who had been in the industry for a long time. They naturally had some things to teach Rongyu. Compared to others, Rongyu was too clean and simple. Even Huan was considered a veteran. However, she was different from others. She was born into a good family and had the Qin family behind her. Therefore, she didn't need to scheme for a lot of things. People would naturally do it for her, and she wouldn't be schemed against. As they chatted, they unknowingly drank some red wine. When Huan felt a little dizzy, she realized that she had already drunk 3 glasses. She wasn't a good drinker, so she was slightly drunk after 3 glasses. However, she still remembered that Qin Mo was waiting for her outside. She didn't know if he had eaten, so she thought about it and said, I'm a little dizzy. I'll go to the balcony to get some fresh air. Rongyu and Kong Xiao were talking and nodded. Okay. Huan took her phone and thought about it. She sent a message to Qin Mo. Have you eaten yet? Qin Mo was listening to music when his phone rang. He took it out and saw that it was a WeChat message from Huan. He stared at those simple words for a long time before slowly replying, Not yet. He waited for about a minute before Juan sent him a message. Go buy some food. I'll be done in a while. Chinamo looked at the time. It was already past 9 o'clock. How much longer? Juan thought for a while before replying. Maybe an hour or so. No matter what, I'll come out first. Chinamo didn't say anything. He continued to lean against the back of the chair. He wanted to light another cigarette, but he didn't know why he put it back. He opened the car window to let out the smell of smoke. In the restaurant, Juan put away her phone and was about to leave when a figure sat beside her. Juan tilted her head and saw a familiar side profile. She paused for a moment and called his name, Rongyu. He smiled. Can we talk for a while? Juan also smiled faintly. Sure. She looked at him. Congratulations. Your future is bright. Chapter 43:10. After Juan said that, Rongyu smiled. He handed a glass of wine to her and held one in his hand. Juan clinked glasses with him and sighed. Don't always stay at home writing scripts. Go out and make some friends when you're free. You're on good terms with Kong Xiao now. Networking is very important in this industry. Rongyu smiled. You mean to get a girlfriend? Juan didn't explain. Actually, he knew what she meant. He also knew that she was with Chinamo. Rongyu rarely drank, but he drank a few more glasses tonight. He sipped his wine lightly and seemed to have thought of something. He looked up at her and said, Do you remember what happened many years ago? Juan shook her head. Rongyu only smiled and said, Look, you don't remember a lot of things, but I do. Do you know what Kong Xiao said to me that day? Juan stared at him. Rongyu's fingers played with the wine glass in his hand. These words were painful for him, but he was going to leave soon. He wanted to tell her. They weren't together. If there were any memories, he would be alone. And he wanted her to be happy without any regrets. With some difficulty, he said bitterly, Juan, have you ever thought that you've always liked Chinamo and not me? Juan was stunned. She held a glass and sipped the red wine gently. Rongyu placed his hand on her shoulder and patted her lightly. Then he walked away, leaving her alone. Juan sat on the balcony, drinking red wine alone. After finishing one glass, she asked the waiter for another. She looked out at the night sky and thought about the past. Thinking about how she and Chinamo had grown up together, she felt as if the past had been stirred up. She deliberately got herself drunk. Perhaps that would make her more natural in front of Chinamo. Meanwhile, outside the car park, Chinamo received a photo from an unknown number on his phone. Juan and Rongyu were sitting side by side. Rongyu's hand was on Juan's shoulder, and she was looking up. The background was Sea City's night view. It was beautiful. Chinamo silently looked at the photo and then deleted it. He waited patiently for a while before calling Juan. Are you done? Her voice was gentle. Sitting on the balcony, Juan mumbled, All right, Chinamo, can you come and pick me up? He said yes. Juan hung up the phone. It was not difficult for him to find her. Soon, he saw Juan on the balcony. Juan was lying on the sofa, her soft, short hair covering half of her face. She was curled up, probably due to the cold. Chinamo walked over and sat beside her. His voice was very gentle. Why are you here alone? Juan's body moved. She tilted her head and looked at him with a slightly intoxicated expression. Chinamo took off his jacket and put it on Juan. He sat beside her and hugged her, enjoying the night view of Sea City with her. He said, very sad, No. Juan leaned on his shoulder and said a little foolishly, Why are you here? Chinamo sighed softly. There was a little girl who seemed very sad, so I came. As he said that, his gaze fell on her face. Juan looked at him eagerly. After a while, she suddenly hugged his waist. I'm not a girl anymore. Chinamo smiled faintly. Yes, you're the child's mother. Chapter 43:11. Juan was a little drunk. Lying on his shoulder, she stretched out a finger and gently stroked his handsome chin. Her gaze was a little intoxicated. Chinamo, you are actually very good-looking. He nodded and lowered his head. Go home. However, Juan refused to let go and buried her face in his chest. Chinamo, have you eaten yet? His gaze was a little deep. Not yet, but I'm full. Juan looked straight at him. She didn't understand what he meant. Then, She seemed to have thought of something and made a fuss about eating with him. Chin Mo frowned. "Let's eat at home." With that said, he bent over and carried her horizontally, walking straight out. Huan was still lying in his arms and was still making a fuss. Her red lips were slightly open, and her breath was puffing on his chest. Separated by a thin layer of cloth, it was a little numb. Chin Mo lowered his head and looked at her. "I really shouldn't have let you out. You're so drunk." Huan was in his arms and kept making a fuss about finding a place to fill his stomach. Chin Mo's heart was warm, but there was a kind of indescribable feeling in his heart. When he put her in the car, he didn't get in immediately. Instead, he stood outside the car and murmured in a low voice, "My illness is not a trivial matter to you, is it?" Huan had him in her heart, but her feelings were too deep. She was never willing to say it, and she was very stubborn. At this moment, she was drunk, which was why she said what was in her heart and worried about him. Chin Mo looked at her. Huan leaned against the back of the chair and looked at him while biting her lips. She said again, "When are you going to eat?" Chin Mo looked at her and finally smiled. "Let's go now." He got in the car and took her to a health congee restaurant. Huan was still drunk. He fed her half a bowl of congee and quickly finished the other portion. When they walked out, she seemed to be a little sober, but after a while, she hugged his arm again. "Chin Mo, carry me on your back, okay?" Huan. Under the streetlight, Chin Mo's gaze was gentle, but there was also a hint of surprise in his eyes. They had grown up together. When she was young, he often carried her. Later, when she grew up and had her first period, she refused to let him carry her. In the past, she had always called Chin Mo. Until that day, he waited for her at the school gate. They were from a high school for nobles. He was in high school, while Huan was in the middle school. The sun was about to set, but she still hadn't come out. Chin Mo went to the campus to look for her. At this time, the huge campus was already empty, and there were not many people in sight. Finally, he saw him under a sycamore tree on the field. Huan was sitting under a tree. He was wearing a white school uniform and had his signature short hair. She was very thin and small at that time, only about 155 centimeters, but very beautiful. And he, at that time, was already 182, could easily lift her. Chin Mo slowly walked over and sat beside her. "Little one, what's wrong?" Huan seemed to be startled. She turned to look at him, her nose a little red. She bit her lip. "Why are you here?" Chin Mo ran his fingers through her short hair and smiled. "I've been waiting for you for a long time. What's wrong? You rejected my love letter?" Huan's face was a little red, and she turned her head. "No. Then what is it?" Chin Mo's voice was gentle, and he stared at her. Huan didn't say anything, nor did she get up. She just sat there. Chin Mo wanted to pull her up, but when he moved, Huan screamed, "Don't move." Chapter 43:12. Chin Mo frowned, but he still pulled her up. However, his gaze soon froze. There was a small patch of blood on Huan's white dress. She was... Chin Mo quickly understood. Huan was 14 years old, and she was on her period. Chin Mo was a few years older than her, but he could only be considered a teenager. His handsome face was slightly red. Huan was the same. She glared at him and pursed her lips into a straight line. She glared at him and said in a low voice, "Turn around. Don't peek." At that moment, he came back to his senses and hurriedly took off his coat, draping it over her. He was 182 centimeters tall, and the coat reached her knees. Moreover, it was dark, so there was nothing wrong with it. Huan was thin-skinned and wanted to reject him, but she was feeling extremely uncomfortable. Her tummy was bloated and hurting a little. Chin Mo said in a low voice, "Let's go. It's getting dark. I'll accompany you to buy that." "Stop talking." Huan glared at him and walked in front, looking a little tsundere, and that was exactly how Chin Mo liked her. There were many good-looking girls in their school, but Chin Mo never cared about them. The only one he liked was Huan. Everyone in the school knew that Huan was under his protection, so no one dared to have any ideas about her. In terms of matters between men and women, he and Yi Muyun were quite similar. The difference was that Cher did not dare to talk back because she was afraid of his big brother. As for Huan, He was afraid that He-Huan would look at her face. Qin and Mo held He-Huan's hand and dragged her out of the school, not caring about how others looked at him. He-Huan refused to take the car, afraid that she would leave something in the car. That would be even more embarrassing. Qin and Mo looked at the GM hotel in front of him and sighed. I'll get a room. You can clean up inside, and we'll go home when you're done. He-Huan looked at him. Buy me that. Qin and Mo smiled and dragged her, walking slowly with her. After a while, he asked her softly, Is your stomach very uncomfortable? He-Huan glanced at him. What do you think? Qin and Mo laughed. I might not have the chance to experience this kind of pain, but I can make you feel a little better. With that, he picked her up. He-Huan screamed, attracting the attention of many people on the road. Qin and Mo smiled. My sister. I'm not your sister. He-Huan gritted her teeth. Qin and Mo smiled even more happily. Then let's change it to something else. How about my future wife? He-Huan's face turned red. She raised her hand and slapped him. Let me go. He refused to let go. She struggled, but the moment she struggled, her stomach hurt. He-Huan was furious and glared at him. Qin Mo's heart ached. He asked in a low voice, Does it hurt a lot? What do you think? She asked, grinding her teeth. Then she turned her face to his shoulder and ignored him. She was as arrogant as ever. Qin and Mo smiled and pinched her cheek. Chapter 43:13. While waiting for the waiter, Qin and Mo took out his phone and Baidu. Then, he looked at He-Huan in surprise. Being stared at by him, He-Huan felt as though her tail had been stepped on. She asked fiercely, Why are you looking at me like that? Qin and Mo smiled wickedly and waved the phone in his hand. It says here that I could be a mother after my period. He was not even 20 years old, so this was something new to him. He looked at her with a passionate gaze. He-Huan, can we make a child? He-Huan wanted to vomit. You wish. She stood there in silence and stopped talking to him. She was very uncomfortable now. Blood kept gushing out, so her little face became paler and paler until she could barely stand. Qin and Mo noticed her abnormality and immediately carried her. He called out to her twice, but He-Huan still fainted in embarrassment. When she woke up, she was already lying on the soft bed. Opening her eyes, she saw a handsome face in front of her. He-Huan was shocked. Qin and Mo, his beautiful eyes blinked. You fainted. He-Huan sat up immediately and looked at her bathrobe. She glared at him. What did you do to me? Qin and Mo smiled. You fainted and I called the doctor. He said that you just lost a lot of blood. Then, I knew that you liked to be clean, so I helped you take a bath and change your clothes. That's all. He said calmly, but He-Huan was already screaming. Oh, you helped me take a bath? Is there a problem? He frowned. We used to bathe together when we were young. He-Huan lifted the blanket and wanted to get out of bed, but she felt dizzy again. Qin and Mo said calmly, It's 10 o'clock now. I called Uncle Kaim and told him that you're sleeping in my house tonight. My parents asked you to stay the night. She was still staring at him. He added, I also called my parents and told them that Uncle Kaim asked me to stay the night. He-Huan was furious and her face was red. You are so shameless. I did it for you. Do you want me to tell the truth and say that we were in a hotel suite and I helped you take a bath? Qin and Mo smiled and circled around her body before saying, I lied to you. It was the waiter who washed it for you. Oh right, the waitress. He-Huan heaved a sigh of relief, then became even angrier and threw a pillow at him. Her face, which had lost all its color, was now a little rosy. After venting her anger, she felt much better. Then, she felt a little embarrassed. After all, it was her first menstruation. Qin and Mo probably knew what she was thinking. He rubbed her hair and said, I've washed and dried your uniform. You can wear it tomorrow. Also, remember to put tampons in your bag in the future. I heard that girls are not always punctual, and I may not always be by your side. He was about to go to university, and He-Huan still had a few years left in this school. He was worried, but as the heir of King Entertainment, he didn't have the right to stay a few years behind. No matter what, he couldn't stay with her forever. After Qin and Mo finished speaking, his heart was moved, and he tugged at her hair again. Xiao Budian, did you hear that? What has it got to do with you? He-Huan said. Qin and Mo stared at her. How has it got nothing to do with me? Didn't I say it? You can be a mother now, and I'm the father of the child. Huan was drinking water. A mouthful of water sprayed onto his young and handsome face. Chapter 43:14. The young Qin Mo's face darkened. He glared at her for a while, but in the end, he didn't say anything. Huan continued to drink water gloomily. She cursed in her heart. What did it have to do with him whether she could be a little mother or not? He was so bad. Qin Mo sat on the sofa with his long arms and legs. He took the menu and looked up at Huan. What do you want to eat? Huan was only in her teens and didn't have a strong sense of gender. She was wearing a bathrobe and leaning against him. Her body was fragrant and soft. Qin Mo glanced at her again and then passed the menu to her. You order. There was also a small ordering device, which was quite magical. Huan's fingers were white, tender, and soft. She studied for a while and then ordered a few dishes according to her preferences. She looked at him and ordered 2 of his favorite dishes. They grew up together, so she knew what he liked to eat. After ordering, she threw the order box to the side and wanted to move away, but Qin Mo pulled her onto his lap. He had long arms and legs, so she easily sat on his lap, and she was so small. Qin Mo frowned and looked at her with a look of disdain. Come over here a little. Huan bit her lip and didn't dare to move. Let go of me. She didn't move, so Qin Mo dragged her over. He held her waist with one hand and gently rubbed her stomach with the other. Huan was shocked. He looked at her and said, What are you thinking about? I'll help you warm up. She was stunned again and looked at him. Qin Mo smiled lazily. He hugged her like he was hugging a little doll. Huan felt warm. He didn't do anything else, so she leaned comfortably in his arms. She felt that the bleeding part was much better, and she even felt a little drowsy. Qin Mo didn't stop, but his gaze fell on her little face that was about to fall asleep. Her face was a little pale because of the blood loss. Qin Mo's heart ached, but he didn't know if he was mesmerized, so he kissed her lightly pink lips. Huan woke up immediately and looked at him in confusion. She felt that her lips were a little warm, but she wasn't sure if he had kissed her, so she could only stare at him. Qin Mo smiled. What's wrong? Huan looked at him and was about to speak when someone knocked on the door. The meal is here. Qin Mo easily picked her up with one hand and put her aside. He went to open the door himself. Huan swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Qin Mo opened the door. The waitress outside took a few more glances at him because of his young age. However, she heard that he was the heir of King Entertainment and that the girl he brought was also the daughter of a family friend. She seemed to be very treasured. It was said that she was on her period. This was probably the first time, so she was at a loss. However, it was great to have such a handsome and rich boyfriend. It was her first time having her period, and she was in a presidential suite with full service. Different people had different fates. Qin Mo pushed the card in and set it up. He took out a rose from the crystal vase and handed it to Huan. This is for you. I heard that a girl's first time has to be ceremonial. Huan took it and looked over. She realized that he had asked someone to send a cake over. Qin Mo grinned and picked her up. My family's little princess. Huan was stunned. I'm not your family's. My surname is He. Qin Mo held her firmly, a smile on his face. He said slowly, My parents always say that you're my family's. What do you think that means, huh? It was 9 at night, so he could let her play for a while before going to bed. He took a blanket and covered Huan. She was having fun and did not even look up. Qin Mo went to the bathroom alone. When he came out, he was wearing the same bathrobe as hers. His young body looked very good in the white bathrobe. Huan accidentally glanced at him and put down her phone. After a long time, she said softly, You have a good figure. Qin Mo bent over and took out his phone. He said softly, I'm going to bed. I still have school tomorrow. Huan's eyes widened. I haven't done my homework. Go to bed first. I'll help you do it tomorrow morning, he decided quickly. Huan. Chapter 43:16. Although it was a presidential suite, there was only one bed. Huan looked at the bed, and then looked at Qin Mo. Qin Mo made the decision for her. Let's sleep together. We used to sleep together when we were kids. Besides, I won't have any thoughts about you. As he spoke, he carried her over and trapped her in his arms. The two of them were covered by the quilt, as if they were trapped in a fairy tale. But now, Juan was carried by him, and it felt like they had returned to the past. When she was unhappy, and she couldn't walk or felt uncomfortable, Chinamo would always carry her on his back until they drifted apart. Chinmo's voice was a little hoarse. Juan, are you sure? Juan nodded and patted his back. Chinamo was stunned for a moment, and then he squatted down. Come on. Juan leaned over and hugged his neck. I'm done. Chinamo smiled. It's as light as before. Juan, can't you eat more? I eat a lot. She bit her lip, looked at him, and then buried her face in his neck. I'm so sleepy. I want to sleep. He didn't allow her to sleep, and he wanted her to chat with him. Juan yawned again. I'm so sleepy. Chinamo carried her on his back. After thinking for a while, he gave up his car. It would take about 2 hours to walk from here to where they lived, but he was willing to carry her like this. His voice was hoarse. Did you have a good night? Don't you have anything to say to me? What do you want to say? Juan's little hands tightened, and her breath was hot. Chinmo's voice was particularly hoarse in the dark. It's about you and Rongyu. Oh, it's all in the past. Juan leaned on his shoulder. He told me a secret. His voice was even more hoarse. Juan propped herself up a little on his back, and then gently bit his neck. I'm not going to tell you. Chinmo's voice suddenly became dangerous. Really? Juan actually laughed and said yes while hugging his neck tightly. He patted her lazily. I'll let you talk about it when we get back. Then he changed his mind. He carried her back to the car and drove all the way home. After returning home, they interrogated Juan on the king-size bed, but he didn't say anything. In the end, Juan sobered up and remembered how ridiculous he was just now. After that, Chinmo kissed her tiny forehead and said in a hoarse voice, I shouldn't have let you go. I regret it. The photo had been deleted, but he still cared about it. Juan lay in his arms with her head resting on his chest and one hand hanging around his neck. She said in a distant voice, Chinmo, I remember the past. He looked down at her. What is it? Juan looked up and smiled at him. It was a long time ago. A dreamy look appeared on her face. Do you still remember when I was in my teens? The first time we stayed at the GM hotel? How could Chinmo not remember? He didn't say anything, but just gently rubbed her hair. I thought you didn't remember. Juan was silent for a long time, and then said in a low voice, If we grew up together, I would probably like you very much from the beginning, just like other girls. He was so outstanding and good-looking, but Juan had grown up with him, so she had long been used to all kinds of excellence and all kinds of good things about him. They just drank a glass of wine and sat for a while before they separated. Rongyu went back to the hotel, while Chinmo went back to his place. After getting into the car, Chinmo suddenly said, I received a photo last night of you and Juan. Rongyu smiled faintly and didn't explain. Indeed, there was nothing to explain. Chinmo's eyes were locked on him. After looking at him for a while, he drove away. When he returned to his place, he didn't sleep immediately. Instead, he went to the study and made a few calls. Chapter 43:18. Then, he smoked his cigarette and waited quietly until the call came back. I'm sorry, Mr. Chin. The surveillance cameras in the restaurant are broken tonight, so we can't provide you with what you want. Chinmo held the phone and was silent for a while. Then he said in a low voice, Okay, I got it. He slowly put down his phone and sat quietly smoking. His eyebrows furrowed slightly. He didn't tell Juan about this. This little episode was over. Juan continued filming as usual, while Chinmo stayed in Sea City most of the time. He would go back to B City to visit Juan for a day or two every week, and occasionally bring her to Juan. Time passed quickly, and Twin was about to wrap up. Chinmo also received Rongyu's new script, Don't Talk to Him. He read it from beginning to end, and had to admit that Rongyu was extremely talented. Ai Jia was the female lead for Don't Talk to Him, and Kong Xiao was supposed to be the male lead. However, Kong Xiao had acted in Twin, so he might not be willing. Moreover, After considering other things, he gave up and chose another capable actor. When Huan came back, she saw a piece of paper and a script on a coffee table that Qin and Mo had placed on it. She glanced at it and sighed on the sofa. Don't you think the actor you used is too old? Although Kong Xiao was used in Twin, the female lead was very lively. One was mature, while the other was intelligent. They were a good match. How should she put it? AIG's acting skills were not bad, and he could hold his own in an artistic film. However, it was already a little difficult to match the background of the script. With the addition of an old male lead, Huan, as a director, felt a little too old. She pointed out the shortcomings. You may be able to make the film feel good, but you have to consider the audience. If you must use AIGA, you'd better change the male lead or replace AIGA. Chinamo leaned back on the sofa and put his hands behind his head. He looked at Huan and smiled. Then who do you want me to replace? I'm not the one doing it. I don't have much of an opinion. Huan stood up. I'm going to take a shower. Chinamo reached out and pulled her. Sit down. I have something to tell you. Huan sat down and looked at him. Chinamo smiled. Are you willing to do it? I'm not interested. She patted his leg. I probably can't capture Miss AI's beauty. You should find someone else. With that said, she broke free from him and got up to go to the bathroom. Who would have thought that he would not let her off, even when she was showering? Following her in, he hugged her from behind and chuckled. Your words sound a little sour. I'm just doing what I can. Huan continued to wash her body and thought for a while. From what I see, she doesn't have much spirit left. Chinamo, you know very well that you're just doing this to return the favor. But you forgot you're no better off than her. I know. He kissed her neck and sighed. Your taste is very sharp, especially when it comes to choosing actresses. You really should be a man. Huan was a little speechless. Chinamo, can you not say such things while hugging me? She was a man. How could he kiss her? Chinamo smiled. Let's shower together? Huan rolled her eyes. I knew it. An hour later, they came out of the bathroom. Both of them looked satisfied. Chapter 43:19. During dinner, Chinamo suddenly said in a low voice, Huan, I want you to film this film. She looked at him and took a sip of her aperitif after a while. Then, she smiled faintly. I won't work with AI, Jia. You know the reason. Chinamo doesn't want me to do things I can't do. Also, I won't change my words. If you and AI Jia have an affair, I will quit. She added softly, I won't argue with you. I can also maintain our current relationship. We can live together and take care of Huan. But we could talk about remarriage in the future. I don't want to be in and out of marriage. She also didn't want to be divorced a second time. Chinmo suddenly said, I'm not asking you to take a picture of her. It's just, he smiled faintly. If you film, I'll still go to the set. We'll still live outside. Or we can film in Sea City. We don't even need to move. Huan was speechless. She shook her head. You weren't like this before. I think as the President Sheen of King Entertainment, it's totally okay for me to be willful for once. He chuckled and reached out to touch her face. Don't you think so? Huan didn't want to talk to him. She lowered her head and ate her salad. Filming is not a vacation. Chinamo just looked at her and smiled. He didn't say anything. Later, to Huan's surprise, Chinamo didn't replace the male lead. It was AI Jia. He told Huan early the next morning. Henan was a little shocked. After a while, she said slowly, It's a little unexpected. Chinamo didn't explain. He just reached out and grabbed her in his arms. He kissed her hard. You heartless little thing. Huan felt a little pain from his bite. She slapped him away. Are you a dog? It hurts so much. Also, I'm not from King Entertainment. Why do you always look for me when you change actors? He dragged her into his arms again and locked his eyes on her. Because I want to have our own work. But Huan wasn't interested in that. She lazily patted his handsome face. It's Huan. Chinamo was speechless, but he still let go of her. You really have no conscience. He got up, feeling a little disappointed. At this moment, Huan hugged him from behind and moved her face closer. I don't want to film for the next 6 months. I'll stay in B City to accompany you. Isn't that good? Chinmo's body stiffened. He couldn't believe it. Huan's fingers gently rubbed his shoulder, and she chuckled. Do you still think I have no conscience? Qin Mo pulled her over from behind and held her in his arms. Really? Of course, this is on the basis that you keep your word, she said somewhat lazily. After she finished speaking, she broke away from him to wash her face and brush her teeth. Qin Mo leaned against the bed and finally read the message in her words. She was taking from him. He chuckled and didn't say anything. He followed her to the bathroom and closed the door. After a while, Huan screamed, Qin Mo, you bastard. Yes, he was a bastard. He would only be a bastard to her. This time, he made Huan late. In the end, he personally sent her to the set. Huan ignored him for a few days and refused to do it with him. Of course, that was a story for another time. When Qin Mo drove back, he received a call from Secretary He, saying that AI Jia had gone to Sea City. Qin Mo frowned. Call her and tell her that I'll wait for her at the branch of King Entertainment. Chapter 43:20. However, by the time Qin Mo arrived, AI Jia had already arrived. The atmosphere in the company was a little tense. Qin Mo didn't mind. He had always been clear about the company. AI Jia was neither a shareholder nor a senior executive. He didn't know why his subordinates had to listen to her. So, when Qin Mo entered the branch of King Entertainment, his expression didn't look good. He didn't know why those who didn't know what was going on. AI Jia was already waiting in his office. Qin Mo looked at the door for a few seconds, then walked in and asked the secretary to pour 2 cups of coffee. AI Jia's voice was a little tense. I heard you replaced the female lead of Don't Say He Talk with AI Meng Meng. Is that right? Qin Mo drank the coffee lightly and said slowly after a while, This is the company's decision. This is Huan's decision, right? She doesn't want me to film and stay by your side, right? AI Jia's voice was a little tense. Qin Mo was still quiet. Huan isn't an employee of King Entertainment and has no right to make decisions. Besides, this film has never been decided on a roll. AI Jia, I don't know why you're in Sea City, but I have something to tell you. AI Jia looked at him with an ugly expression. Qin Mo pressed the intercom. Send the document in. The secretary came over and put down a document. She said softly, This is from Secretary He, President Qin. Qin Mo gestured for her to leave first. When the door was closed, Qin Mo said softly, AI Jia, this is a supplementary agreement. I don't think you're in a good state of mind to film. Here's the liquidated damages. They'll be transferred to your account within 3 days. Check it. AI Jia was stunned. After a long time, she whispered, Qin Mo, I don't believe you would do this to me. Qin Mo's expression didn't change. AI Jia, let bygones be bygones. We have to learn to let go. I do it, you do it too. It's because of Huan, isn't it? She smiled softly. Even if I don't affect your lives, even if I just want to see you miss the land of Qin, I'm not allowed, am I? AI Jia picked up the document. What if I don't want to? The compensation agreement comes into effect automatically, Qin Mo said faintly before looking at AI Jia. I'll send you to America to recuperate. AI Jia looked down. Qin Mo, I don't want the contract, but I don't want to go back to America. I want to live in the land of Qin. With that, she walked out without looking at the agreement. Qin Mo clenched his fists. After a while, the secretary came in. Miss AI has left. Qin Mo let out a long sigh. I understand. He went out and sat in his car for a while before driving back to his place. Asterisk on the other side, Huan received a call from AI Jia. AI Jia's voice was very soft. Can we talk? Huan recognized AI Jia's voice almost immediately. Are you AI Jia? Yes. AI Jia sat in the white sports car and took off her sunglasses. I'm on the road outside the set. There's a cafe by the road. Can we sit down and have a cup of coffee? Huan went to the cafe. She was dressed very casually, completely different from AI Jia's exquisite clothes. The 2 women sat separately, and the waiter brought the coffee. Huan looked at AI Jia. Why do you have time to look for me? AI Jia's gaze fell on Huan's face. After a long time, she said in a low voice, I really don't know why he likes you. Chapter 43:21. What else? Snatch your buddy's girlfriend? Juan sneered. Ai Jia took a sip of coffee and said calmly, Juan, believe it or not, even if I quit, Chin and Mo won't be quiet around him. A man like him is destined to be entangled by women. Juan laughed. After a long time, she lowered her eyes and said, It sounds like you admit that you're no different from those women. Ai Jia's face suddenly darkened. She looked at Juan and sneered. I hope you'll always be happy. She was about to leave when Juan called her Ai Jia. Ai Jia stopped. Juan said in a low voice, Do you like Chin Mo or Chin Lu? Does Chin Lu know what kind of woman you are? Ai Jia put on her sunglasses and just looked at Juan. In the end, she left without saying anything. Juan sat quietly for a long time before he finished his cold coffee. She felt that Ai Jia was indeed a little abnormal. She sat for a while and then made a call to the United States. I want to investigate Ai Jia. When she hung up the phone, she was actually in a bad mood. She went to the set in a bad mood, so she left work early in the evening. When she returned to the apartment, Chin Mo was busy in the kitchen. Juan didn't know what special day it was for him to cook by himself. She was a little annoyed, so she sat on the sofa and lit a cigarette. She didn't smoke and just burned it. Chin Mo came out of the kitchen and saw her sitting there. He came over and rubbed her hair. Why did you light a cigarette? Juan looked up and said, I saw Ai Jia today. Chin Mo grunted and then said, I terminated the contract with her today. Juan stared at him and sighed after a while. Chin Mo, I think Ai Jia. Is there something wrong with her mentally? Chin Mo smiled and said, No, she's fine. Juan was worried. I'm afraid she'll hurt Juan. Chin Mo frowned. No. Ai Jia is just a little bored. She won't do anything to Juan. In his impression, Ai Jia was a generous and decent woman who had never hurt anyone. Juan looked down. I always feel uneasy. She always felt that there was a secret about Ai Jia that they didn't know about. Even among the people she knew, no one understood Ai Jia, and no one knew about the relationship between Ai Jia and Chin Lu. Juan's mind was in a mess, so she didn't do anything after dinner. She just took a shower and lay on the bed. Chin Mo begged her to have sex, but she didn't agree. She just quietly stared into space. Chin Mo's voice was low. I've terminated the contract with her. I don't care about her anymore. Juan, I can't lock Ai Jia up. She's an adult, an individual. Juan looked at him and said bitterly, I know. She still rejected him and turned her back to him. In fact, Ai Jia had an impact on their lives. At least, her appearance made Juan feel uneasy. Early the next morning, Juan was a little uneasy. She was almost hit by a piece of debris on the set. Fortunately, Kong Xiao caught her in time, and only a shallow cut was left on her arm. Red blood oozed out, and Juan was in a trance. At the same time, she got news about what she had inquired about in the U.S. An email was sent to her account. Juan looked at the sender and decided to read it when she got back. Now, she had to deal with the wound on her arm. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.